I studied philosophy in Mexico, and I'd always heard other people talking about this one author, Byung-Chul Han. I didn't get into any of his books until I was well into my degree, but he'd always seemed like some cultural guru from everything that I had heard. I looked for some videos in Spanish and watched some stuff to get acquainted, and then later on I finally read his book, The Scent of Time in a Philosophy of History class. The book was unlike anything I ever really read up until that point, and it always seemed like he was right on the money when he talked about societal and cultural issues. Everyone that I had ever talked to about philosophy always knew at the very least that he existed. One day I suddenly wondered whether people on the English speaking side of philosophy were also aware of him. To my surprise, I found nothing. Well, nothing besides some translated interviews or conferences, but no videos diving into any of his works. There seems to be an interest in him growing slowly, yet I'm still honestly shocked as to why a contemporary philosopher with so much to say and with many different perspectives is completely unknown, unlike someone like Zizek or Judith Butler. Maybe that's due to the fact that he's mostly been closed off for the majority of his career, not taking interviews and not appearing in many conferences. Well, I guess my point is that I want to present three of his books that I think can give a broad view of what his perspective tends to be like. So I can maybe get some people in the English speaking community to read some of his stuff, and maybe they might feel some fascination with his work like I did when I first found him. But this isn't a complete explanation of everything. It's just some of his ideas, in a nutshell. To anyone that is already aware of him, this is probably the one you know about, and the one that most people are probably the most interested in, because he talks about depression. Basically, here is where he explains his idea of self exploitation. Back in a disciplinary society, where a master or boss kept an eye on everyone and punished whoever wasn't doing what they were supposed to, someone could go home and forget about work. But then we thought, hey, that's way too much control. Why do they exploit us when we can just exploit ourselves? Pretty much, in a time where what is important is that you can do something if you try, you're always pushing yourself to be productive. So think of this: you're just vibing with the boys on Sunday, or Saturday if you're into that holy stuff, and you just randomly feel guilty. Like, oh shit, I'm not being productive. I'm not doing anything. Dog, we're just trying to watch some hentai together. You end up thinking about what you have to do for school or work, and so your rest days don't really end up being rest days. So, you could be playing video games, but you can also spend time working on schoolwork or extra things for work and feel productive. The root of this is what he calls excess positivity, which is, for example, when we say that we can do something, it always ends up being a positive affirmation about myself, rather than showing what lies completely beyond my capabilities by saying that I can't. The lack of negativity explains why we live in an age of depression. We are expected to do so many things and can't or don't know how to put limits on ourselves. This also means that being bored is pushed out and seen as a bad thing. So we just keep ourselves entertained by watching some random iceberg videos. I watch them too, but that's besides the point. But being bored can also lead you to being creative because it makes you think. But now it's like bad to just sit there and think because it doesn't really look like you're doing much, which might be why getting a career in the humanities is a no no because you definitely aren't producing money. So to summarize, people do too much and should stop. This one is all about living in the information age, which definitely isn't exactly knowledge. Pretty much, you can watch as many YouTube videos about any topic, but you end up forgetting everything you've heard like 5 minutes later because it doesn't really matter to your life. Well, this video doesn't count. While something like a story told to you by someone you care about is something you'll more likely remember, information is what we end up encountering the most in the news and, what we usually hear brought in debates now, statistics. But 100 million deaths and 1,000 deaths feel like they carry the same weight when there's nothing behind the numbers, when we strip every single death of its story and its face. In the information age, what saves us is the narrative, which truly tells us something. But the only narratives that we find are conspiracy theories that look desperately to find any link between facts. They try to form some narrative that can explain the crazy, absurd world we live in, yet still falls short because any fact checking makes them crumble. The numbers that the conspiracy theorists provide aren't the truth, because truth is narrative. It tells you something that numbers could never do. Looking at a pie chart will never replace talking to someone about their experience. Hopefully. Numbers aren't the be all end all, they're the start. Saying that X group of people do more of X doesn't mean much until you ask why. He also mentions Alex Jones and 4chan here, which is kind of crazy because apparently he doesn't even have a phone. This guy somehow knows about internet culture without even using the internet. So, this is where it becomes pretty obvious he's kind of a pessimist, which you can probably tell from the title of the book. This is also where his language gets a little more dense with more philosophical terms like other. His main point here is that the other is disappearing, and so too is Eros. Okay, but what does other even mean? And, well, It's a little complicated, so hold on while I give an example to make sense of it. You have a friend named Chad. Wait, never mind, that's an incel thing. Uh, let's say Tom. Now, if someone asks you what Tom is, you might answer with, oh, he's a student, or he's a Redditor and posts some wild shit at 3 a.m. But none of those things ever tell you what Tom is, as in what makes Tom Tom. There are also countless things that you never even knew about Tom, like maybe he's an avid frequenter of r/slash My Little Pony, and all the happenings of Tom's entire life will never be able to be grasped by you. Tom is another. Now, eros is another loaded term. Eros is one of the various kinds of love that the Greeks had. This is the root of the word we have today, erotic. One of the main elements of eros is desire. So, like when you're crazy down bad for that one person in your life, you want them. When you are super in love, it makes you completely forget about yourself and you always have the other person in mind. It makes you come out of yourself and towards the other that always escapes your desire to grasp them, and that makes you want them even more. But narcissism keeps you within yourself, focusing on you and only you, leaving no room for erotic desire. Porn is completely focused on what you want to look at, and if there is something you don't like, you find another video. There is no negativity. There's nothing unexpected that comes with being an other that keeps things interesting, because everything is already told to you in pieces of information. You can find the same absence of negativity on dating apps, which gives you lots of information about someone, and so you can choose people that suit your tastes. More likely than not, you won't match up with someone you weren't already into, never encountering someone so radically different from you like you can at school. Like you run into some edgy ass dude that is nothing like you, and you end up becoming best friends. In today's society, though, competition at a large scale breeds people who look to be rewarded through the other, reaffirming themselves like a mirror by the other, never actually encountering the other as other. But competition and the necessity of being able to do whatever you want if you set your mind to it is the antithesis of the negativity of eros, of erotism, of being able to say, I can't. This is not who I am. If you constantly change how you act to meet the expectations of everyone else, you will never know who you are and then recognize what someone else has that you don't have. Some people love their partners because they are very patient, while the other person is very short tempered. Sure, you might think that it's not the best way to handle things, but it's so appealing to see them act so differently from you. This isn't to say that opposites attract, but that maybe it's differences that attract. We always have to change how we act now if we want to keep our jobs, if we want to not isolate ourselves from our coworkers, if we want to maintain connections that could lead to opportunities down the line. That's how the game is played. With us not being able to recognize who we are because we are always keeping our head down to work and work, to compete against other people that are right around the corner to take your job if you get fired, we're competing against other people to prove your lifestyle is better. The ability to recognize what you can't do is gone, and so too is the negativity when you encounter other people. They are no longer an other, and so any desire that arises from negativity is gone too. Well, that ended on a pretty sad note. So here is a 5-second feel good puppy to cheer you up. Alright, so those were three of Byung-Chul Han's books that I think summarize a lot of what he writes about in a nutshell. I didn't include The Scent of Time because I might want to make that one into its own video. And I might do some more of these with other authors if I think it'd be cool to expose more people to their stuff. So look out for those videos. I don't really know how to end the video,